Welcome to Podcast This Escape, the podcast where we talk about the escape room we escaped from in the previous episode of this podcast.
We are here with Triviality, who have committed double homicide.
You did it! You killed 2 kids, everybody!
And not for the first time. I mean, yes, just the one time.
I think
Just
technically
imaginary.
it's manslaughter.
Technically, it's little girl slaughter.
No geese were harmed in the making of this podcast.
That's right.
You guys, congratulations, you finished the room, you found it. This was, I will say, a tough one.
So my design of this room, I had written it, I wrote it a million years ago, and then when I started typing it up to get it out of draft notebook stage, I realized not only does this room make no sense the way I've written it, it is insanely easy. So for the first time possibly ever, I completely scrapped and rewrote a room and made it significantly harder.
Yeah, so good work getting through it.
Yes, and thank you for the little nudges also.
Well,
They've all been cut from the final
But
edit.
I will talk about some of these little nudges in a second because I think they're interesting to talk about from like a puzzle perspective about what was catching you. But I wanted to say first, yes, this was a hard one, and I think this was a hard one because I play tested this recently as well, and it's hard because like often with an escape room you do something and it solves to get you the next thing, and then you solve that and you get to the next thing, and then maybe later on you find something that requires like 4 or 5 different things to happen. But for this one, it was like, you have to collect so many little pieces and then connect 5 or 6 of them together to solve one puzzle.
Yeah. And so I think it was a good thing that we surveyed the whole situation
Exactly.
right off the bat.
You made your
Before we even-
connections very well with these things. Like
Yeah,
when
this
you
was
had all
like
of the
the,
pieces, you put them together nicely.
I would say this was the Elden Ring of escape
Yeah.
rooms. They just plopped you in the middle and they're like, have at it, and you don't know where to go and nothing jumps out at you. You're just on your own there.
Because you think about those geese, all right, to get like,
It's
to
so
open up the
much.
stirrer,
We
right?
did.
Figure that out.
If we want to stir some milk, you had to find 3 separate outfits, realize that those had 3 separate messages on them, realize that the 3 geese had names that were puns for those outfits, find the geese's eggs, which told you which parts of those ones to take, use the egg weight, or use that solution to weigh the eggs to find out which geese are good and bad, which tells you which of their names you used for the other puzzle, which tells you what to look for in a
In the
separate list
brochure.
of goose names, and then you can stir milk. And you cannot do any of those things until you've done all of those things. It's so
Correct.
much connecting at once. It's a very like top-heavy room of trying to find everything, and then the solutions come at the end.
And I was concerned about writing one like that.
Yeah, well, I
I
think
feel smarter, so thank you for saying all those
Yeah.
nice things.
Yeah.
I think taking things just like one thing at a time, even when you have all the information, trying not to like let it interfere in each.
I think you did a
Mm.
good job at separating the things like that.
Like, okay,
Yeah,
let's put the costumes on the geese, like, you know, and then write the letters down.
Well, I think so often in escape rooms, there'll be something that's like specifically, oh, that's something with 8, and there's an 8-digit code over here. But this was different in the sense that you had to have all the information and then eliminate some of the information to get to the correct amount of information.
Yeah.
And that's not usual. Usually it would be like, oh, it's a 6-digit code. There's 6 letters on these things. You either got to unscramble it or it's the word. But this was not like that. So I thought
Which-
it was fun and very confusing when we were talking it out.
And yet you made those connections, and I was actually really happy that it worked that way. Like you're saying, oh, I need a 6-letter code. Well, we have a selection of 3 6-letter words here.
Yeah.
And the fact that none of them individually was the right answer, but they were the key to getting the right answer.
And that I thought was interesting because you got caught up on something that I got caught up with, and I wonder if you did this with with intention,
really?
Danny, which is that you have the 3 6-letter words.
Yeah.
You realize there are like 2 letters from each of those words that are different,
and
which
you
would get you a
assume that that's
6-digit
going to be
code.
6 letters.
But instead, the remaining 12 letters gets you a phrase that means another 6-letter word,
You know what?
which was just a slap in the face to people who count numbers.
Just consider for a moment the creation of this particular puzzle
Sure.
and trying to find 3 longer words that you can cut letters from to make words that also fit together to give a coherent puzzle clue.
I mean, it was very impressive.
It was
You
insane.
have a wonderful mind. That's all I can say.
Oh, please. I was trying to do other ones. I just found some, you've got in my notes some random words. Like I've got lament, becomes lame. Beaker becomes beer, where I was just trying some words that worked. And then I went, oh, what's a clue that can work to give an answer? And I went, bird like crow.
Bird
So
like crow.
Is there any way to make
Raven?
6-letter words out of bird like crow where you only get rid of 2 letters from each? Nope, that's not
Nope.
a thing. And eventually I came up with goes with salt, gorgeous with a basalt. And
I mean, it worked.
it took a while.
That was fun though.
It was cool.
It was good when you get it. You feel good. Honestly, the hardest part was
Coming
the
up
meals.
with the pirate puns.
No, pirate puns is easy.
I would just sit here and do pirate puns all day.
If you've never listened to our show, that's what our show is. It's just
It's just a series of pirate
pandemic
puns.
is what they called it.
Well, I mean, usually this is one of the first things we ask people in the post show is what moment did you individually feel best about yourself? What made you feel cleverest?
But, not including the pirate puns. I
definitely felt
I-
inferior on the pirate puns.
I enjoyed the moment where I was able to decipher that the sections of the eggs that were bad were coordinated with the costumes, and I immediately got the goes with
That
salt.
was great.
Yes, that was a good, and it's that kind of connection that's so important because they're all goose connected. But I like this idea of like, wait. Each of those eggs has 3 sections. Each of our outfits has 3
Yeah.
sections. And if
And when you
these are
when
the
you
sorts
take
of
it out
things-
of letters and numbers for me and into spatial awareness, that's where
Ah.
I can
But it's
understand
interesting as
stuff.
well. Like this is one of those things where people can get caught up with how they do their notes or things like that. So like if you had not written, like if you had just written out like with a gorgeous basalt, there's a chance that you may have not remembered that those came in 2-letter sections that had a verticality to them.
Right.
And I'm intrigued. You figured that out. How have you written those down in your notes?
I put the 3 words on the side, but I also had mainly the image to go off of. So when I was doing those, I was looking at the image of the clothes.
Yeah, it's just an interesting thing to because we had this happen on our on the last episode where our players found a letter that was like turned on its side and they had to rotate it 90 degrees, but they did that so automatically that they didn't remember that they had actually done that. They just wrote down what the letter was, like, oh, we got a big F. We
So
found
when
an
they
F
then
somewhere.
had to turn something else 90 degrees later.
Yeah, they found other letters that they didn't realize they had to turn on their sides because they'd forgotten. They just wrote down a big F.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting that you can forget sometimes, but you did great at being able to catch that straight away, that they had that verticalness to them.
Were there any other smart moments from other people? Made you feel good?
Well, Matt was the mastermind behind the dishes and the color
I was
coordination. right?
very convinced immediately that was going to be the order, but I always think that we had a digit, so you're looking for
Yeah, we were overcomplicating that.
looking for some kind of numbers, and I did that. That was like the first thing I said.
It
like, it's a
was.
3-digit. We got to count these things, which was true.
Yeah.
But I
was
needed
true.
more information.
And I think so. This is we were talking before about this as being like a little push, a little hint that needed help because this is one of those things where I feel like sometimes as players you can get caught up in an idea, and the idea that you seem to get caught up with was that you were being given the point of the brochure was to give you a reordering of your meals. Like the first one is going to be the one that is most like green, and the third one's going to be the one that's most like orange, because we are getting. Whereas we were banking on the idea that these dishes have, like, you know what the first, second, and third meals are because there's an entree, there's a main, there's a dessert, and so you must be needing to get something else. And like that was the only push you needed. Was like, is this going to give you the order?
I just wanted to play with the food is all.
It's true.
Now, that is interesting because I specifically called them first dish, second dish, third dish to avoid regionality naming problems, but that may have caused this
Maybe
problem.
that did. Maybe it would have been better if you'd called them entrees, mains, and
Yeah.
desserts.
Well, in America, we generally eat out of a trough. You just put all the so we just go.
You were
head
screwed
first
either
in.
way.
Yeah,
You should have made one of them a burger, one of them fries,
yeah.
and one of them a milkshake. Then they would have
So
known what
the
was going
problem
on.
is I always eat my fries first.
I do
Yeah.
too.
You
Ah!
dip the fries.
If
in
it
car.
were
there.
In the
milkshake,
car.
the burger would go last.
Disgusting.
One moment that I was happy with, oh my god, the 2 moments actually. One, getting pirate. As soon as the eggs were ranked good or bad, you were straight to pirate.
Oh,
I can't
yes.
remember. Who was
Oh
that?
yeah, pirate was like staring me in the face because I wrote PIR, and then on a new line
Mm.
what is it, T,
Yep.
and then ATE on the next line. So I just saw pirate in these letters and bit rate, but that didn't seem to make sense.
Well, and it's funny, I had it the other way. So I had the 3 geese written out, kind of, 1, 2, and 3.
I
kind of in
didn't
the same way that
see.
they
I
appear
didn't
in the
even.
image.
I didn't even worry about the other letters that weren't circled. I just wrote down the circled letters.
Well, and below
So-
it, I wrote so I have, PIR, BIT, ATE spaced out, but all in one row. And so,
Yeah.
as soon as we had omitted Bill, pirate was
Yeah.
immediately there.
Well, I was actually worried after having done it because now, like, I'm sure you're doing the same. When you look back at your notes or what you've got there, like,
And the word
seems
pirate is
so
right
obvious.
there.
I was so worried that you would just look at it immediately and be like, oh, well, this probably says pirate. We can ignore the middle because look, it says pirate right there. Because once you've taken out that middle, it just seems so clear. I got really worried that you wouldn't even need to solve the puzzle. You'd just be like, oh, pirate, done, moving on.
That's true. He made me put some contingencies in my notes for if that happened.
I think I did, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we need more info.
I was giving you that, but I was going to make it so that you still needed to release the eggs and deal with all the eggs before the scale would let you mess with it. So there was some more gatekeeping later.
Yeah. Well, I think that just finding the word pirate in those letters though would not have made me generally look in the geese
Perhaps
book
not,
for a
yeah.
pirate.
No, that's definitely
Because it was
a team
it
activity.
was like once we found out that these geese were the village people and did all that stuff, then I realized that they
You're
all
right.
have vocations outside of being egg
That is true.
Yeah.
Right. They had vocations coming into this that they gave up for the privilege of.
I did wonder how, as I was drawing them, I did realize how village people I was making them. I can't remember. I think I came up with the ballerina construction cowboy as things that had good distinct pieces of outfit first. Then I came up with the pun names.
Good,
And-
barista.
Incidentally, realizing that the names were puns, that was a fun moment to hear. I like anything that's like a sounded out clue is fun on a podcast.
Well, when I saw built up, I got it right away, and I was kind of trying to figure out how wither or whatever would work with that. But then it was
Bill Withers.
Bill Withers.
yeah, Cattleman, Cattleman, got it, nailed it.
Pirouette.
I still, I said that out loud. I'm like, that must be the other one, but I don't get why.
They are tough sometimes, like where you just need to say them in a kind of a weird way. Like pirouette does not quite sound like pirouette, but you just got to kind of go for it.
Yeah, I mean, we do before and afters on our show all the time for swing
Love
rounds,
that,
and most
yeah.
of the time they are some stretches.
Usually I've written those ones.
Yeah.
Oh, there was one recently. I can't remember what one it was because I have no idea what order I'm listening to your episodes. I do the most recent ones and a collection of old ones at the same time. Where there was one and it was a movie combined with. It was the Page Masteroids. That's what it was.
Masteroids.
And yeah, that makes less sense in our accent.
Yeah, masteroids.
Oh, it sounds like you need a cream for that.
It does. It is one of those things because that happens all the time. It's the same when because you see a lot of word puzzles like that, like online in fun podcasts. When you're watching like British panel shows, they like to do these sorts of word ones, and it's really funny the extent to which when they're not from the same sort of region as you,
Sometimes
they don't have the
that
same
just
accent.
does not equate.
You
Yeah.
just have to be like, okay, I've got to put on. Like American stuff for us is very common because of the R difference. So often
The
you
R
have
difference
these.
and some vowel differences
Yeah,
as
there's
well.
differences. Yeah, that's the big one in like an American accent or in a lot of American accents. The O and the A sound.
The O
overlap.
sound and the AH sound.
Yeah, so you have the what's the cot court merger.
Yeah.
is what they call it. So like for us, cot like a thing a baby sleeps in, and court are completely different vowel sounds. But for some American accents, they're both like an open R, like a cart and cart. I cart it and I put in a cart. And so like and so you get these rhymes that exist in American accents that don't exist in Australian, as well as hard R's. So you see word puzzles sometimes. And this is also true when you see a British one where they'll be like,
yeah.
you'll be on, they'll like a mock the week thing, and they'll put these words together and make a pun out of it. And then you go like, that does not work for me. I'm so sorry. And so you have to, so often when you're doing puzzles online, you have to be like, wait. Let me put on like let me put on a weird
Who wrote
accent and read
this?
this
Yeah,
clue
let me do
again.
a
We'll
little
see if something
digging.
new pops out. It's very funny, those sorts of things. The first episode of this season had a series of like reading words out in a list
And it's
to
fun.
create a puzzle. And once you know it, every time they say it, it's like, yeah, you've just said the answer. And they're saying it over and over again. You're like, I don't know what this means. What could it possibly mean? And I had a little bit of this with you guys where I wasn't sure if you'd gotten Cattleman yet, but you kept saying, this is Cattleman. I was like, surely they've got it. They've said it over and over again.
That
Oh
is
no,
how
we
say it in
definitely did
America.
not get
Oh.
it until
Well, once we figured out built up,
Mm.
Like, I need to hire me a cattail man. That's how
Cat
we say
we
it.
call that a
Cattleman.
cowboy.
Cowboy. Yeah.
well, you might say a cattleman.
I wouldn't.
We've just
you
been
put-
watching all of Fresh Off the Boat, so
Yeah,
we
so
had
they have
Cattleman's Ranch in
so,
mind.
you know.
Oh yeah, sure.
It's not called Cowboys Ranch.
Fair. No, it took. If nobody said it, I would have just gone the whole game not recognizing the puns, probably.
Oh.
And it's fair enough, but it's just once you know it, you can't unhear it. It's
Yeah.
just a funny thing.
Yep,
So
it totally changes your perspective on it.
Oh. Can I tell you some of the puzzles that I had in my original version, or just some of the
Oh
notes
yeah,
I
give us
have
some
in the
easy
original
puzzles and we'll
thing?
solve them like that.
Well, a first problem that I had was that you could not reach into the tank of water because it was too cold for you to get clothes out of it.
No.
I had no solution for this in my notes, and it was at that immediate point that I scrapped the room.
That was it. That was what gave it to you. You could just add some gloves somewhere.
Apparently, I had
You have to warm your hands up by holding them in a goose's wings.
Oh,
You got to warm them
I
up
had
on a goose
no
and then come over.
means of doing it.
Nice hot goose egg.
Some of it stays the same. Get gum, then get Carla onto tipped scale. After gum removed, you get the option to swap foods for next batch. Elsewhere, you found a menu or hints of one. Gum lock scale device. Yep, those are words. I needed a goose treat, but I had made it much more complicated than just grab a piece of melon. It was grabbing different things from throughout the room. You needed a hat, you needed green milk, and you needed a garnish of something from one of the new meals.
Okay, that's kind of fun. Little shopping list.
I wanted you to have to crack open the 3 eggs to find hints in them that would give you those food ingredients.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
And-
was surprised we didn't try breaking the eggs.
They
Well,
would
they-
have been solid and luxurious.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted for that you to use a giant nutcracker, and that was going to be hidden inside the stirrer or something. I don't know.
That's what I want, a 5-hour escape room where you just keep it just keeps going and going and you never ever get out.
That's
And-
what mine is like.
I had very simple maths equations to unlock the chutes.
Simple for some.
It was literally, they were all numbered, like one had a 5 on it, a 3, a 7, and an 8, and you just had to put like a plus, minus, times, divide, or equal sign at places where they would belong. I don't know.
Oh,
It
but then
was-
you got to make sure you're doing your bod mass correctly.
It was half formed.
Uh,
I think I wanted like 5 times 3 equals 7 times 8.
Oh,
5
yeah.
7 plus 8 is what I was going for
Those
there.
are pretty standard in escape rooms. I see those kind of
hmm.
Yeah.
puzzles, like the squares where they got to equal whatever. Sudoku
But-
style puzzles.
There's
Yeah.
a certain amount of leniency on things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, clearly I had confused myself quickly. And
I think
not
I
do
remember
much.
being there when you were trying to write. You were like, "Oh, well, I've designed that. Let me write up my notes." And then you went,
Mm.
"Oh, none of these make any sense.
I just
This room
skipped
doesn't
it.
exist."
I just got mad, skipped it, and started typing up room 4 instead.
True. Which, for people playing along at home, we have already recorded before this episode. So room 4 is
Yeah,
already
that
been
one
done.
went fine.
I will say it's an interesting one with this, because I just want to talk about this because you guys do a lot of trivia, right? Obviously, you're triviality. It'd be weird if you
A
didn't.
little
We
bit.
dabble. Yeah.
But like, surely you would know this idea of like, you can sort of learn with trivia the kinds of things questions are going to ask you. Especially like if you're watching Jeopardy or things like that, you can kind of feel like, oh, this sounded confusing, but really it's only asking this specifically, or to like, you can kind of you
Right.
start to learn how questions are formed. And also you guys have a whole shtick of like hiding hints in the wordings of the questions, which is also very, I feel like is kind of a Jeopardy thing as well. There'll be like a
And
little
it's
pun.
definitely a thing that we do as well.
Yeah,
I hide
right.
clues in the wording.
Well, this is what I was going to say. So I feel like there's a thing with trivia where even if you, other than just learning facts, there's a lot of skill in trivia in learning to properly interpret questions or to properly understand where a question is sending you.
Yeah, well, so the thing is, facts are boring. Most people don't like it. If it was the podcast was just here's things you may know or not know, I don't think anyone listens to it. But being able to kind of suss out a question based on something else you might know or context clues gives everybody a chance to play. And then if you're like, oh, I could have known that. Like that's a fun feeling rather than like who would know
Yes.
that after a question after you get an answer. So
Mm.
that's just I think that if you wanted that, just read Trivial Pursuit cards. You can do that, but like that's not what
I
you would
recommend that
listen
as
to.
well. That's fun.
Yeah,
But
for
yeah,
learning things, but that's
but
not what our podcast is about.
The
So
real way you use Trivial Pursuit cards is you go through a card, and every time you do not get the whole card correct, you need to do 6 push-ups for that card.
Gonna push up from the
I
card.
get
And
a
you've just
pretty
gotta keep-
rad, yeah.
And you've got to keep going until you get a full card correct.
That's it. That's
So
how you get. That's how you,
you either get
Nice.
really ripped or you know your trivia so you don't have to do any exercise.
Really ripped and really smart,
Uh,
or one or the
you're-
other.
it's like Professor Hulk.
Now, the way you do these, your trivia questions in that sort of semi-hinted fun question written way, that actually really helped me recently in one of the big international quizzes that gets done, because a huge chunk of this paper of these questions was written in that style. Like, I looked at the paper, I looked at the first 10 questions and went, oh my god, this is just like how Triviality does it. I feel very comfortable here. And apparently some of the other people who had done the quiz, that was totally new to them, and they didn't spot that there were little hints in the wording and things, and they found it really unusual. Whereas I
Yeah.
just went, oh, someone had fun with this.
Yeah, like if the trivia questions are written well, sometimes a hard question you'll be able to see like this is obscenely hard if it's this answer. You know what I mean? Some obscure
Oh,
answer that you've
yes.
thought of. So it's probably not that answer, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
And,
Yeah,
and
it's
then maybe
like
you
a
can find a hint
learned-
in there to the correct answer.
Mm.
Or
I noticed
like
that in a recent one of yours as a question about like a Pacific island nation. I just went, all right, well, I'm going to
Philippines.
cut out like 8 of them because I know no one ever knows anything about them.
Yeah, it's not going to be about Palau.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a bit of game theory too.
yeah, game theory.
And- but-
It's really good for true or false questions too, because you got to imagine the question writer writing it in both a true way and a
Mm.
false way.
Yeah.
So you could
Oh.
say, in a million years, would this question writer have thought to write this question if it's false? If they just made that up, or no?
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
I would love to do that more at writing trivia. Just, those things where they're like, true or false. Like Elton John once lost his glasses on stage and had to play blind, but the audience helped him out or something. And you did some funny little story. Like, no, false. That's boring. I just made that up.
Yeah, no, I made that
You're like,
up.
no one would ever do
Always
this.
good.
They're always
Yeah.
true. They're always, so I found a fun fact. Let me write it as a true or false.
Right.
I think there's an interesting thing with this, like looking at puzzle design from the same sort of lens, is like you thinking about like learning in an escape room what you need to know or what sort of stuff is going to be given. So like obviously there's a classic one of escape rooms have a lot of the opposite of trivia, where if the answer is trivia, generally you go, oh, that's not going to be it, right? They can't expect me to just know this. So there's going to be a clue to lead to some other version of this answer.
Right.
But I think in this room, one of the ones that was interesting was, again, with those meals, is like trying to think about the puzzle as like, well, how is this going to, like, is this going to give us a 3-digit combination? Is that what we're getting? And if so, how could we tailor these clues to make us get that? Which is sort of where we ended up with, where it finally like, oh, wait, we must have to count these things in a way that's going to get us 3 distinct digits.
Right.
And I think when you
Yep.
focus on that end goal, you can sort of parse the way the clues exist and how it's all together. Like, well, how is this going to help me find 3 numbers?
Mm.
And it's like a learned skill for escape rooms to get better at sifting through the stuff in the clues, in the what you found that isn't going to matter and is going to matter, or what words to look at, can help when
Yeah.
you end up on this like goal oriented final thing. Like, what am I going to output? How is this going to give me a solution that I can input into something?
Yeah, I think that whenever I enter an escape room, the first thing I do is when me and my girlfriend will go and we'll look at all the locks and we'll say, okay, we need a 4, we need a 3, and this is
Mhm.
a word. And then you look around the room and you're like, okay, there's 4 of this thing, there's 3 of this
Exactly.
thing. Obviously, that's where that's going to go. And I think that's what was really, really interesting about this room was that you couldn't do that because
Yeah, it
the numbers
played with that
didn't
a lot
line
harder.
up equally.
And that's
Yeah.
what made it difficult.
Mm.
It really put a
Mhm.
lot of that on its head and just went, you're looking for 6, like you're looking
Still.
for 8 digits. You have to take 6 things, put them into 3, take out the middle 3, get 9, which turns into 6, which then turns back into
And
8.
yet it's still better than the opposite, where you need 3 and everything in the room is 3.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Which, granted, we have also played with this season.
we have done that too.
You just got to punch a bunch of stuff in, see what works.
That's the less fun way to do it. Like I'm going to
Yeah,
try
you-
001, 002.
Oh, yeah.
That's like the
And we'll
the
make you
brute
say
force
them all.
method.
Yeah, the main thing that you can hope for is that somewhere else, if everything is threes, you've got to hope there's got to be something else that's going to connect two of these threes together. You don't just have to
Yeah,
guess.
it makes you it like takes that out of the equation. You now can't use that as a tool, so you have to find some other tool that is going to
And
connect things to each other.
That's
and
like
you hope it exists. and it's not just
definitely what
arbitrary.
I was trying to do with this. Like, obviously, I used the geese names and the clothes to make you know that there's going to be a connection going on there. I used the license plate on the bike. I don't know how much anyone pays attention to that, but it says who's a good girl to make sure that once you've got this idea of the eggs have been labeled as good, bringing a connection to the eggs and the stirrer.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
what I
you
was
had a lot
trying
of
to
nice
do.
thematic connections in this one.
It's not easy to be able to do those in a way that's going to work for everyone.
And of course, everybody wants to dress geese. That's
course.
everybody's first thing when they see a goose. They think, how can I put a little costume on this goose? So it was nice to add costumes in.
Yeah. That was my favorite part.
When you had one of the geese, you had it at your level at the end of the room.
You
and
didn't take the
didn't
opportunity
even
to dress the
try.
goose.
Yeah, that's a mistake.
Bill, we let you
It's a
down.
mistake I won't make again.
Let you down, Bill.
Oh,
Well,
wonderful.
the clothes were still wet from the vet, so.
We don't know how long we were in there.
I
That's
think geese
true.
are okay with water generally.
No, they hate it. That's why
Probably.
they all live in farms.
That's why Bill gave up his fancy career as a builder and moved into this very dry factory.
Yeah. So I wanted to mention one other thing, and I can't remember whether or not this ended up fully on the recording or not. But before we started, Ken, you mentioned that you
Oh,
wrote
yes.
your own escape room
Yeah.
of this style for you for a RPG group.
Yeah, and I test played it with some people first, and then I played it with my RPG group.
Nice.
How does
which was
it?
cool.
How did it feel experientially without giving us any spoilers in case we want to play it someday? Yeah, like as a comparison to how this one went, does it feel very similar?
It's very different in terms of the puzzles, but I took a lot of inspiration from listening to your episodes, and that's kind of how I came up with some of my own puzzles. So they're not directly the same, but yeah, I kind of had to work my way backwards. Like, okay, so how am I going to block my players here? How am I going to block my
Yes.
players here? And it's interesting because in mine, I actually had 4 players, and it was designed for 4 players, and it must be 4 players. So,
Ah,
so they had to do stuff individually. You know, they could
But in a-
speak to each
But
other.
in sort of a cooperative way.
Yeah.
that's great. Like when you know who the group is and like what the
'Cause
makeup
I'll
is
give
going to be.
I'll give a slight spoiler. People
Please.
are cuffed up in the beginning, so you only have a certain radius that you can move.
Gotcha.
I like that.
That's fair.
And it's nice when you have a group to be able to promote that sort of thing, because I feel like a lot of times when once you start getting to about 4 people in one of these experiences, you get closer and closer to the tendency that one person is just going to not be able to do anything because they're not going to speak, or they're not going to have other people are going to have ideas first, or they're not going to be so it's nice to have things that require cooperation to be able to be like, now we all must be involved. Let's all
Right,
do
yeah.
this.
Right.
Unless it ends up as
And
like
so-
a game of Pandemic where one person tells everybody else what to do with their characters, and the cooperative game just becomes a single player game with an audience.
Yep.
Yeah. And since mine took place in an RPG too, it did involve a little bit more role play. And like using your characters to do stuff in the room as opposed to just solving the puzzles.
Yeah. Now, was there any chance element to it where like dice rolls could determine things?
A little bit, but not to the point that it could just completely wreck the room.
Yeah, because that's always where I struggle.
Yeah.
with
There was a
thinking about these.
there's a couple places where like a dice roll could like acknowledging to recognize a certain clue or something would help you. So that's kind of what I told them. I was like, don't you can't break stuff in this room, basically. So I had to set some ground rules to how they were supposed to perform within the room, and then kind of say you can use dice rolls to help you with some of this stuff, but you're essentially solving puzzles in here. So just role play it. Yeah.
It feels so subtle, but it makes such a huge difference. Cause it's a really different experience. Because a lot of the time, I don't know if you DM in a similar way to me, and I know that some other people do this, where it's just for RPGs, you give problems, you do not have a set solution.
Because you want to give the players the freedom to come up with whatever weird solution they can.
And you just then get to judge on the spot what's going to work and what's not.
This is what we call in my group riding the bike downhill. So if I say you open the door and there's a dark basement and a staircase and it's a horror game, like I want you to go down there, right? Now you don't have to go down there, but there's something down there for you, you know?
Yeah.
That's fair.
So you can ride the bike uphill or downhill. And downhill is easier, but uphill is also an option.
Yeah, I've heard that referred to in like the comedy sense as like garden path. Like things can be really funny when you expect them to follow that path and then they break from the the expected norm. So
yeah, and it's just if you know your group really well, it's very manageable. If it's a more general thing, like if you're trying to write something like this as a module, it would be impossible.
Yeah, you got to come out with a different idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at some point we would love to get you on. If you find that and put those notes together, we'd love to have.
Oh, we can
and
totally
play it.
grab 2 more players.
We could definitely
and play
organize
it
4
sometime
people.
if you ever want that to happen.
Sure, yeah. Let me see if I can make it happen.
Yeah,
and
it'd be lovely.
I'll discuss like some of the ground rules with you and see if that'll work.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for coming on. It was lovely to have you on to solve all these puzzles. It was
thank
great
you
to
so much.
listen to you. We had a lot of technical difficulties with the recording. Hopefully no one knows that outside of saying this. I don't think the edit will have shown that. But I'm glad it all came together in the end and worked out. For people who wanted to check out Triviality and follow along, where should they go? Where would you like to send them?
yeah, you can follow us. I mean, you can download our podcast pretty much from anywhere. It's just Triviality, kind of
Whatever
like it
app
sounds.
you're on right now.
Yeah, we're in pretty much every single space you can find us. But one of the other ways to find us would just be at Triviality Podcast on most of the socials. So Instagram, Facebook,
And join the Crop,
yep.
which is our fan group on Facebook.
So
The
yeah,
Crop.
I'm there. I'm there.
Danny's in the crop. Go and find Danny in the crop, everybody.
Say hello.
Sure.
Yeah,
That's
For
where
all
I
of you
hang
who are
out.
Confused. One of our taglines is that the cream will rise to the top, and so that's where we got the crop from. So
There's a lot of Macho Man.
Just Google Triviality Podcast, you'll find it.
Yeah, we have. You can go to our website too. That'll direct you to all of our different links. Trivialitypodcast.com.
Yeah, plenty of presents.
Wonderful. Yeah, and there'll be links in the show notes to a bunch of that as well. For people who want to see more of what we're doing, you can go to consumethismedia.com where you'll see all the fun stuff of Escape This Podcast. There's a new Solve This Murder somewhere in the works. Based on when this episode comes out, I have absolutely no idea where in the works the new
It might be out already. We
might be out
have no
already.
idea.
It might have not been recorded yet. I'm not sure, but it is on its way.
Make it happen.
We're
We will
recording
tell
this
you.
quite far in advance. So other than that, if you want to help support the show, leave a review, go and tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell someone, go onto a random internet forum and say, oh, a new episode of this is out. You should go and check it out. And then they don't take it down for self-promotion.
Someone make a Wikipedia page
Make
for
a
us.
wiki
That's
about
good promo.
us. That's a fun hobby, making a wiki about our show. Just if you've got time on your hands. But also, if you want to help support the show, you can sign up for our Patreon. Anybody who signs up at any level can appear as an NPC in one of Danny's rooms.
Yeah, we had a couple. So we've got the ongoing Matthew Martin, of course, and main players in this one, Vivian Leanne and Carla Steen. Thank you so much. The others whose names you briefly heard, Mike and Chan, we'll hear more from them later.
And then, yes, there's bonus episodes. If you want to hear my playtest version of this room and us playing through and making any possible changes, you can check that out for $5 donors, as well as 2-minute mysteries and a bunch of other fun bonus episodes. There's been a bonus episode every week for quite a long time. So if you join now, there's a huge backlog of fun to get through. There's badges for $10 donors and other fun stuff. So go and check it out. It's a great way to help support the show and let us, eat food, pay bills, things like that. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Say bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.